we are delighted to have you here this morning to give you some information in regards to the TSPLOST referendum that's going to be on the ballot on May 22nd. As you know, early voting has already started, so you may have already seen it. And I would like to thank CGTC for allowing us to use this space this morning, as they always do, and also the city and the county for being willing to come together and present this informational forum for all of our citizens. And on behalf of the Chamber, I just wanted to note that part of our mission is business development and community advancement, and we feel like community open forums such as these is a great opportunity to provide that education and make sure that all of our citizens are informed on issues that are either on the ballot or that are policies that are pressing in the community. And without further ado, I will go ahead and introduce Mr. Carlos Tobar, who is County Manager for Baldwin County, and he's going to open our presentation. And then I believe Hank Griffith, City Planner for the City of Milledgeville, is going to continue, and they will be able to field questions from the audience after that. But I will ask that we keep this to about an hour in full. So, Mr. Tobar?
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I know a lot of us have to get back to work, so I'm going to go as quickly as I can. In 2010, the Transportation Investment Act was passed, and 3 regions, I believe in 2012, voted for the tax for their TSPLOST. And I'm new to Georgia, so I'm going to have to step over here. I don't know all these regions off the top of my head. River Valley, heart of Georgia, Altamaha, and central Savannah River area. And those results there, those are customer satisfaction surveys. These citizens have been able to see the benefit of the tax in their communities, and you can see they're very, very happy. In 2014, 91% of the respondents said that they were satisfied with the performance of the Transportation Investment Act in their regions. And in 2016, that number went up to 95%. The other 2 bar graphs there are for level of customer service and the response of the local officials. This is how much money has been generated in those 3 regions. And again, I don't have these memorized, but you can see the numbers there. CSRA, their total collections have been $329 million, River Valley $230 million, and the heart of Georgia, Altamaha, $146 million. The numbers that we really want to highlight, they have the approved investment list. Those are the big projects in their regions. But look at the local discretionary money. Those are dollars that are used for resurfacing roads, improving sidewalks, improving safety at schools. So those are the revenues collected by the region. And these are the types of projects that you'll see in those regions. If you drive there, you'll see that they have purchased construction and maintenance equipment. That's important because a lot of communities, they do what they call in-kind labor, or they have their own road department, do a lot of the earthwork in advance of the construction company coming and resurfacing the roads. The equipment required to resurface roads is extremely expensive. But the equipment required to do some earth moving and do earthwork, do pipe extensions, culvert extensions, things like that, it's much more affordable, and your staff usually can do that type of work. In Appling County, they put in a center turn lane for a school entrance, resurfacing in Harris County, school zone beacons in the city of Dublin, and sidewalk extensions in the city of Dublin as well. And this is called the Middle Georgia Transportation Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax, or Middle Georgia TSPLOST, or just TSPLOST. And the regional roundtable was comprised of all those individuals there. And at the time, Chairman Sammy Hall was the representative for Baldwin County, and then Mayor Gary Thrower. But I know Frank Baugh has been intimately involved with preparing this list. And they're here. If you have any questions about how this list was developed, they're here to answer questions at the end. In Baldwin County, we have 433 roads in the unincorporated area, and we average about 7 miles of resurfacing per year. At that rate, every road in the County will be resurfaced every 62 years, okay? A lot can happen in 62 years, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So we average this decade about $500,000 per year just in the local maintenance improvement grant receipts. Okay, that's a grant that we receive from the Georgia Department of Transportation. You pay that tax at the gas pump every time you fill up here in Baldwin County. That money comes back to us and the city of Millersville as well. Now, if you remember, I highlighted the 25% local discretionary funds. That's very important for our community. This is the money that can be added to that local maintenance improvement grant to resurface additional roads or do other types of road improvements. But in our county, I know that's going to be our emphasis, is resurfacing our roads. All right, so in Baldwin County, that extra $1 million per year, that $10 million is over a 10-year period. In Baldwin County, we could resurface 14 more miles per year. So every road could be resurfaced every 20 years instead of every 62 years. And then the Baldwin County match for state projects is reduced from 30% to 10%. And that's very important. And let me park here just for a second. A lot can happen if you don't resurface a road for every 62 years. Okay, I saw that happen in Grady County. We inherited a road from the Georgia Department of Transportation, and it's costing us $6.1 million, not to just resurface the road, but to reconstruct it. 14.6 miles. The road is so bad, people have stopped driving on it. All the asphalt's falling apart. The base is terrible. We have 28 water crossings, so it needs pipe extensions, culvert extensions. It's costing over $400,000 a mile. $400,000 a mile. That's what happens when you don't maintain your roads, is you get to the point where you have to reconstruct the road. And I remember back February 10th, not like I remember the day, February 10th, 1997, my first day on the job at the city of Lodi. My boss, who was the public works director, one of the premier civil engineers in California, that was the first thing he told me, is never let a road get to the point where it has to be reconstructed or it gets too expensive. So that's the other thing that we're trying to prevent here, is try to prevent a lot of reconstruction. For that project in Grady County, we received $4.1 million from the state. Now, we didn't have a TSPLOST, so my match was 30%. I had to come up with $880,000 in local funds to match that grant. And here in our county and in our city, if we're fortunate enough to have the TSPLOST passed, it's going to be able to stretch our dollars even further. We'll be able to get the state to help us with additional state funds if we go and ask for a project to be programmed in the statewide transportation improvement program list, or GTIP grants, or some of the types of grants that could be available for us. The local discretionary funding, we talked about how important it is to be used for road resurfacing. However, you could use it for new bridges, signage, and safety improvements. And nearly 40% of the sales tax will be generated by out-of-county shoppers and diners. You got a lot of restaurants here. So you got a lot of people coming in to eat lunch and dinner. Plus, you have a mall, a lot of shopping going on. So a lot of out-of-town folks will pay for that tax. Now, 75% of the funds will go towards the big projects. And a lot of this will go towards helping reduce congestion and improve economic development in the region. In Baldwin County, in the unincorporated area, you will see improvements on Kings Road and Log Cabin Road. Those are very, very expensive projects. A total of $17,680,000 in the unincorporated area. So Kings Road will be widened, and then it resurfaced from those project limits there, from Highway 24 to, well, all the way around, from one end of 24 to the other. The length is 5.27 miles, and it'll go from 24 feet to 28 feet. The next one is Log Cabin Road. It's a total of 3 miles, It'll go from 26 feet to 54 feet. So it'll go from 2 to 4 lanes. And then it'll be overlaid that entire distance there. So I will pass it on to Hank. I'll talk to you about the city.
We want to share the same information with you about the city of Milledgeville, the incorporated areas of the city of Milledgeville, that Carlos did about the unincorporated areas of Baldwin County, just so that you can compare apples to apples and see exactly how the money is going to flush out for both government entities in the community. Something I didn't put on the slide that I probably should have, based on what Carlos was talking about just then. I asked Frank earlier in the week about was there any way to determine the cost increase in redoing a road or resurfacing a road based on the length of time that it took you each time you resurfaced it. And he gave me a graph, and it's up here. I'd love for you to come up and take a look at it if you want to. But basically what the graph says is that you lose about 40% of your quality in a road just in about a 5-year lifespan. So if you look at a road being in very good condition from the time that you take the measurement, and you extrapolate that condition out towards a 30-year time span, in between the 20 and the 25-year time, you lose about 80% of the quality on your road. And if you go from the 25 to 30%, you lose the other 20% of the quality, and you have to do what Carlos is talking about. You have to go in and completely rebuild that road. So that's the reason being able to resurface these streets and roads as early as possible is so important. Basically, if you start at about year 18 and go to year 25, the increased cost to resurface that road increases by $5 if you just look at it in dollars. If it costs you $1 to resurface a certain section of road at year 18, when you go to year 25, it would cost you $5 to resection that same amount of road. And of course, obviously with resurfacing roads, you need to add a bunch of commas and a bunch of zeros to that $1 and that $5 for you to know what's going on. But that's the reason this discretionary piece of the TSPLOST is really, really important. People tend to focus on the big projects, but the discretionary piece is huge. So here in the city of Milledgeville, we have approximately 100 miles of roads in the city of Milledgeville based on centerline measurements. And with the current rate of LMIG funding that the city of Milledgeville gets, we can resurface about 1.1 miles of road per year. So if you do the math on that, you see that the number of years it would take to resurface all 100 miles of city streets in the city of Milledgeville with the current LMIG receipts, it would be about 91 years. So you obviously, if we're talking about roads having to be rebuilt after 25 or 30 years, you're going to find yourself rebuilding a lot of roads over a 91-year period. Currently, the city of Milledgeville gets approximately $153,000 per year in LMIG money from the Georgia Department of Transportation, and that has been the average over the last 5 or 6 years. It has increased a little bit in the last couple of years because, like the county, the city has had to take over some state routes that were turned over to the local governments after completion of the Fall Line Freeway. But I can assure you it hasn't increased an appreciable enough amount of what it costs to take care of those roads that we were handed when the Fall Line Freeway was complete. Under the TSPLOST, under the 10 years of the TSPLOST, Milledgeville has the potential to get about $3.7 million in local discretionary money. Compare that to the little over $10 million that Carlos showed you that the county would get. This is the same figure that we're talking about for the city. So you can see that in a 10-year period, that local discretionary money goes up exponentially. And the potential, Frank, tell me if I'm wrong on this, but I don't think I am. The potential for the current LMIG funding still exists too. So you would get this in addition to the current ALMIG funding. So you add $150,000 over a 10-year period to this, then you're beginning to look at some pretty decent money to keep your road system where it needs to be. City of Milledgeville could resurface approximately 3 more miles of roads per year if the discretionary money that comes with the TSPLOST is available. So instead of resurfacing every mile of road in the city every 91 years, the city would be able to resurface it every 26 years. So that's obviously a huge difference. You're getting into that 25 to 30-year time period that I was talking about when I first stood up talking about quality of roads. So that time year period is extremely important. Just like the county, this is actually part of TSPLOST. The city of Milledgeville match for state projects would go from 30% to 10%, which is huge when you're talking about the size projects that you have when you're dealing with road resurfacing. And then the local discretionary funding, just like for the county, could be used for other transportation projects such as new bridges, signage, safety improvements. I don't want to speak for council, but I would be real surprised if TSPLOST passes if they don't look at 100% of that discretionary money being used for resurfacing and maintaining the roads on the surface. The city ended up with 2 projects in the 75% figure based on what the regional roundtable looked at. And that would be some widening and safety improvements on North Jefferson Street and widening and safety enhancements and resurfacing on Dunlap. Here's the Jefferson Street piece. Would widen the existing 2 lanes to 4 lanes and widening the bridge at Tobler Creek. This would occur about where Dunlap comes into Jefferson Street. And carry the widening on to Log Cabin Road from that point. Cost of that is about $6.9 million. It would be 2.41 miles. And the width currently is 25 feet, and it would be widened to 54 feet. The other project for the city of Milledgeville would be the widening and resurfacing of Dunlap Road. We would widen the existing 2-lane road to 3 lanes to provide a center turning lane. Also, the possibility of trying to make some changes to the Dunlap Road, Jefferson Street intersection in terms of trying to make it a little more straight of an intersection, depending on the potential for acquiring right-of-way and that kind of thing may be a possibility as there well. But that widening of Dunlap would go all the way from Columbia Street to North Jefferson, and as we all know, that's a heavily traveled road day in and day out in the city of Milledgeville. So the opportunity to have that turn lane there and maybe being able to make some improvements to that intersection would be huge. I think that I think the county and the city are in agreement with the fact that this TSPLOST could give us the opportunity to kind of change our direction in terms of how we maintain our roads in our community. And not only give us opportunity to complete these large projects, but also give us opportunity to resurface our roads more often. So with that said, we will entertain questions from the group, and I will turn that back over to Angie to do that.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
Hank, I'm just curious with the city project for Dunlap. When y'all talk about doing safety improvements, would there be any consideration of putting sidewalks on Dunlap? It's it's not heavily used, but it is a pedestrian corridor, people trying to get out there to the mall and the other shopping on there.
That is not part of this particular project. Depending on what other type of discretionary money might be available to the city at that point in time, or maybe some potential grants that may be looked at, but that is not figured into the cost of the widening project.
And, just to follow up, how does the city's complete streets ordinance interface with these projects that you'll put up towards SPLOST? Like, where does that consideration of the multimodal transportation come in?
The complete streets ordinance really is more utilized in terms of looking at the changes of streets in the downtown area. But obviously, as these improvements are made, this complete streets ordinance would be looked at in terms of trying to make sure that the streets were pedestrian friendly and maybe even bicycle friendly, possibly getting them some additional width on the lanes to have some bicycle trails marked on the streets. But that complete street ordinance would certainly be considered as the scope of work for the project was finalized.
Yeah, I think the state has a complete streets program also, so any new capital improvement along these lines, they're obliged to look at to the extent they can accommodate pedestrian amenities and bike amenities. Those will be obviously, when you get into the design phase, those will be taken into consideration. So that it's possible to accommodate that within the scope and the budget, and that would be, you're obliged to look at that under the policy, complete streets policy.
And the city does look at that when improvements are made. An example of that on the bike lanes, they're on 49 now from Central City Park out to the bridge, Fisher Creek Bridge. DOT had no plans to put those in, and that was resurfaced. And the city sent a letter to DOT and asked them to include those. So those were, the potential for those were identified and asked for from a local level. So the complete streets piece is considered in anything that's going on.
Okay.
Yeah, Daniel more or less already touched on what I want to ask about. I'll just say that I'm really interested in seeing what ends up happening at Dunlap and Jefferson, because that can be a really anxiety-inducing intersection, because one, people don't know how to yield at yield signs apparently. Two, people don't know how to stop at stop signs apparently. Three, people don't know how to yield to traffic when they're making a left-hand turn. I'm glad y'all are talking about it.
I come to it multiple times a day. I'm glad we're talking about it too.
Any other questions?
I was going to say, is there any discussion to put a traffic light there?
You want to?
I didn't ask that, Dr. Price.
I travel that road. It's a safety
That's
concern.
discretionary money question.
Yeah, I mean, it requires the traffic engineering study to see if it meets the signal warrants. That, and particularly since it's DOT funded, that'd be an absolute prerequisite to signal. And I know they do, in some projects they do. I guess they may come up with some model or algorithm to project maybe additional traffic volume. I know, for example, a developer like Walmart, they can pretty accurately predict how much traffic volume is going to be a result or byproduct of that project, and then they actually can warrant a signal on that basis, and the developer has to finance the cost of that signal. That's why you have signals at Walmart and these other big box retailers. But I don't know if they, I think in this case, you may have to wait and do the traffic count, see how the actual traffic volume, emerges, and then if it meets the signal warrants, then you can kind of consider maybe putting a signal there. But that's a high bar, and it usually usually considered an absolute last resort by DOT if they can address safety issues by other means. But it doesn't mean that's out of the question. That could be a possibility.
And it could be that the signal warrant might push towards the need for a signal more after these improvements on Jefferson Street and Dunlap are made, because it's hard to think about it, but that may become even a more traveled intersection once the road improvements are made. So that may make the signal warrant study more feasible for placement of the light.
What about a roundabout? That's been
I mean, that's certainly possible. DOT loves them right now. They take up a lot of right-of-way space.
And it really kills somebody at the end.
I was surprised at how much right-of-way space they take.
Actually, we had a right-of-way at an intersection on an unconstrained project list. We actually had an east bypass going all the way from Dunlap across, all the way around, going back in on Montgomery Street. And we had a roundabout right at the intersection. But of course, that was the unconstrained wish list, that we, obviously, you had to stay within the revenue projection, so, we got our big 10-12 project list got cut down to 2 projects, and likewise with the county, so, obviously, in an ideal world, that'd be nice, but,
Could we put something in place to keep trucks over 6 wheels off of them now? Because some days that's an issue.
The city is considering, council is talking about a potential truck ordinance for a couple of the streets in Milledgeville now, and Dunlap is one of them.
Tommy, have you got a question?
Yeah, I was curious how basically how you decided that log cabin needed to be widened. Was it based on traffic counts? Was that based on safety concerns? Is there any details as to why that decision was made to widen log cabin?
Some of all of the above, I think, is probably the answer to that. The whole concept, first of all, let me go back to the regional TSPLOST, was try to get projects that would benefit the region. So that there would be connectivity between cities and counties and that sort of stuff. Well, Baldwin County didn't really have a regional project, anything that would extend to, Jones County or any other county around. So what we looked at then was, what could we do to improve the traffic flow in Baldwin County? And again, like Frank was just saying, we have a limited amount of money. We had a long list, but we had to kind of narrow it down. We also wanted a project that would benefit both the city and the county. And then we all know that we have a huge traffic problem on 441. So we felt like that by widening Log Cabin and Jefferson Street, we could kind of not create a bypass, but create an additional route to relieve some of that traffic off of 441 and get it to a place where it could go across the river or where it needed to go. That's kind of how we got to that.
DOT made the comment that Log Cabin Road has become the most heavily used county road in the county. And that if you're ever on Log Cabin Road, it's easy to imagine that it probably is. Now, I can't help but comment how important this issue is to Baldwin County and Milledgeville. That every county around us that has passed the TSPLOST in 2012 has received as much as twice as much revenue for their roads as Baldwin County has. And all you have to do is drive to Sparta to see the difference. Sparta, Hancock County has got more than twice as much money for the roads as Baldwin County has. Baldwin County is in a unique position in that we are a retail center for the area. So as we decide how we're going to maintain our roads, as much as 40% of the money that we will receive through TSPLOST doesn't come from Baldwin County. What a deal. What a deal. So we can take advantage of that by passing TSPLOST. The other part of this is that you looked at the county saying 62 years to resurface roads in Baldwin County. You looked at the city that came up with another startling number. We're going to have to repave the roads. There's nothing more core to a community's success than its roads. And that we need to realize that we are going to repave these roads somehow. And that we can do it by sales tax, and we can use 40% of the money that come from outside the county, or the property owners will probably have to be considered as the source for repaving our roads. We can't continue in the direction we're going. This has been very successful to Lawrence County, to Washington County, to Hancock County, just around us. And we should look at their numbers and see how successful they've been, and realize that this is a great opportunity for Baldwin County and the city of Milledgeville to pass this. And as few people as there are in this room, hopefully that the people here will go to their families and they'll go to their neighbors and say what an issue, how important this issue is for all of us. We have to do better than we're doing. Thank you.
Just comment one other time. Mr. Tovar showed a graph chart that said that the other regions had gotten $700 and something thousand. But I want to call your attention, that's just up through 2018. They got 4 more years to collect. So you know, it's probably gonna be around $1 billion altogether. And I think one other thing that was not mentioned here that we need to mention is because of this plan that was developed regionally, DOT's putting in $500 million to make these projects work. Now that's included in all the totals, but they're putting it up $500 million.
Maybe I'm asking a question that's pretty obvious, but we're new to Georgia. Exactly what is the tax rate increase for TSPLOST for sales tax? 1 cent?
1 cent.
Okay.
Any other additional questions? Okay, well, there are lists on the table of the complete projects that are proposed for the entire 11-county region, and those came from the Middle Georgia Regional Commission, and there's a full listing on their website of additional information as to the roundtable discussions and how each project was selected, and then there's also some frequently asked questions if anybody wants to take those with them, or anybody at the chamber can direct them to that website as well. So if there are not any further questions, I want to thank the city and the county again, Hank and Carlos for presenting this morning, and CGTC for allowing us to use the space, and hope you all have a great rest of your week.